What did we call the other one? Interviews in the field. What was it?
Conversations in the field.
Welcome to Conversations in the Field.
All right.
Robert, who are you?
Well, I'm Robert Bellows. I guess I could say I'm the founder of the Warrior Story Field, but it's more complex than that.
It is more complex than that.
Yes.
So I want to start at the beginning.
Okay.
We'll get to the story field.
Okay.
Who are you? Who are you?
Ah.
Who are you? What did you do? What did you do? Yeah.
I'm an artist.
You're an artist.
I'm an artist, and it took me a long time to say those words. I'm an artist. I guess I found my way to saying that somewhere in my 40s, when I was in a very, very difficult spot. I needed some way to understand what I just could not understand about life. There was no way to get there that I could see to understand what was going on, because I was way back then in a very difficult place. I wanted to really get off the planet. I'd just be raw, and I had no way to talk about that, no way to look at why that was the case. I just had in my psyche is tough it out, be strong, keep up a good face, just be sturdy. And when you bury a wound like that, that deep, I learned the hard way, that wound is going to come out and express itself in a way that you don't really want. And that's what was happening to me. I was falling apart in all kinds of different ways. And at that time, I discovered art.
You were in your 40s.
I was in my 40s. I never drew, I never wrote poetry, I never expressed myself. I stayed pretty quiet.
What were you doing up to then professionally? Do we have a
well,
wobble wedge around?
Do we have what?
A wobble wedge around?
A wobble wedge? Oh, there's probably a wobble wedge.
Danny, find us a wobble wedge.
I'll get a wobble.
You'll get a wobble.
Not too far away. Maybe it is far away. Yeah, the whole box of them is out there. Sorry.
There's one here.
I don't know, why don't I start in the rawest part of myself? But I could start here. I did a lot of business. For my early part of my career, I was a teacher. I taught mathematics, I taught history, I taught reading. I built houses, and then I got into marketing and publicity and
this is all before
selling
your 40s.
things. And I worked with Celestial Seasonings, the herbal tea company,
In Boulder.
as their director of sales, and so I learned a lot of business on the job and on the go. There was no training there, we just did it.
Right.
And I got out of that, and I was kind of disgusted with business at that point, and
Back then, it must have been a free-for-all.
it was a free-for-all. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And then I got involved with some folks, and I built the largest spirulina farm in the world, a blue-green algae farm.
No kidding. Where?
And we built that down in Southern California, out in the desert, and I did sales and marketing for that product. And long story short, we had to let go of that business because it got well, it's too big a story for here, but we let go of that business, and I became very tired of business after that. And I said, you know what, I want to do something that's just about me. And that's right about when I started to fall apart. I lost my father right in that period of time after carrying him after a stroke for 20 years. And it brought up a lot of old pain. So art became really, really important in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I started out not knowing anything about it except for I love to weld. And if you can weld stuff together, you can make damn near anything. And I just started to make things. And I took a couple of years off from the idea of working or making money, and I just made stuff.
Did you know how to weld?
I knew how to weld. I learned more as I went. I didn't ever go for professional training. But I just started making things that were about me, for me, by me. I wasn't asking for advice from anybody else. And the bottom line is I actually started to develop my own way of seeing the world by making little bits and pieces of art. So like there's a good example of a piece of that art right up here at the up top. There's just a little boy running along on a scooter.
Yeah.
You know, I made it's, you know, I would call it junk art. And that's where I started. And then I did that for about 2 years, and I made a lot of art, and I sold it, and I actually did very well as an artist.
Go up there.
But the cash flow of being an artist goes up and down like a yo-yo, and so I decided I wanted to start a little business on the side so I could do my art, and I would be able to make enough money to kind of even out the ups and downs.
Yeah.
And it could be a business that my wife and I could run, and my brother at the time. And so we started this little business called the Wobble Wedge, and it's this little wedge right here. And
It wobbles.
yeah, and we started this business by I made a notebook, and Terry and I, my wife and I, added in over 100 ideas of what we could start, and the parameters of starting that business were it has to be cheap to start, it has to be have a high perceived value, it has to require no education in order to use it, so the use of it has to be obvious. And we have to be able to run this business, just the two of us, out of our backyard or our garage. And so we went through 100 different ideas or more, and then one day it's like, oh, you know, a little wedge to stabilize wobbly tables. A lot of people have had that idea, but very few obviously knew how to make it go. So we put this product together. We designed it to be very, very effective and useful. So it's not only just a little shim, but it's also a tool, a sanding. You can use it for sanding. You can use it for all kinds of things. You can wrap it around a pipe. Sometimes I see you could have a chewable wobble wedge, you know. But my wife and I ran this business. And my brother was with us early on, and we did this for 37 years, something like that. And we made a very nice living doing this. And this little wedge here funded my next adventure, which we're sitting in right now.
Yes, and I want to get to talk about that, and so there you go, the wobble wedge. It's a brilliant idea. It's still, the simplicity of it is, I think, what is so inspiring, right? It's sort of like it's a brilliant thing made real and tangible. In fact, I think you told me a story one time about how Ford put them in their pickups.
Yeah,
you don't have to get into that if you don't want
right.
to, but there might be some Ford trucks with wobble wedges on them. Anyway.
Yeah, we don't want to embarrass Ford. But
no, God
it was
forbid.
really cool for us, and we had we actually wound up selling these wedges to Boeing as well. They used them to improve their tooling when they're cutting aluminum sheets. I believe that's what they use them for. They're not in the airplanes.
They're not holding them.
No. Their airplanes are just fine, but in their processing, they would use the wedges.
Yeah. So Denny is shooting this as we speak. So without further ado, and you talked about the value of art in your life, and there's these entities right here. There's an entity in the middle too. I mean, I'll let you, please.
Well,
what is this?
You know, I think we almost have to go out in the driveway and look at the owl. But
we can do that.
We can do that later. Whatever. But I made well over 100 sculptures of small varieties and just out of junk and things. And there was a particularly difficult period where I was really wondering why to be here, and I noticed in my junk pile, I noticed this piece of plowing equipment, which was like two discs tied together at a 45-degree angle to each other, and they're on bearings. And I'm looking at that thing, and I went, "That is an owl." You know, there it was, built into that structure was the face of an owl. And so I picked it up and I welded it on top of a pole that was about 6 feet high, maybe 7 feet. And I looked at it and went, "Oh, that's kind of big." You know, so I started building that because not too long before that I had an experience just being out in the woods, really asking the big questions of why be here. And I saw this owl go by carrying a snake, you know, so I'm looking at the owl, it's in the moonlight and it's this beautiful night. And I got this image from that owl. It's like, you know, the owl is wise, wisdom, but owl also represents death in some cultures. So I'm going, why? Wisdom and death. Wisdom and death, that means my job right now is to die to what I know, and rather than take myself off the planet. And
To
so
die to what you know.
Die to what I know, or die by my own hand. I mean, that was the question.
You were there.
I was there.
You were there.
That was the place I was struggling with. I'm not embarrassed to say that. It's like, I think
Well, why would you?
all people wind up having that question. Anybody that's paying attention to the difficulty of life and the beauty of life, which go hand in hand, will have to ask that question at some point. And I certainly had to ask that question in a big way. And what came out of that was to make the move from that place of desperation to a place of, I'll just say, expression. I wound up making an owl. And the owl was my process, you know. So I built this big owl with about a 14-foot wingspan. And I had no idea how to build it. And there was people, you know, my shop was right downtown Boulder, and it's like, there's people walking by, and they all had their attitude about how I should do this or do that. And I would smile and say thank you for the thing, and then I'd just forget it, because this is my expression, and it's the first time I really had my expression coming out full bore, and that was somehow, I don't know the mechanism, but it was somehow changing my ability to breathe in the world, my ability to be in the world. And the more I worked on that, the better I felt, and that somehow brought me to a plateau of, wow, I need to keep going this, I need to keep doing this. And I learned that all I have to do is keep my hands busy, and I can dispel that circular thought structure that takes you down the spiral.
So are you telling me that in the thick of your depression, where you were thinking of getting off the planet,
Yeah.
you found something through making, you found something through making art, expression.
I found expression. My theory is that what I came to understand at that moment, just in that moment, was that depression, which I carried depression since I was in high school,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe even earlier. I didn't even know what it was until I got, I just called it insomnia, or I called it exhaustion. But as I look back, I go, that was just raw depression.
Yeah.
And so, but I've come to this place where I see I could try to kill my depression, which was my strategy early on in life. When I'm young and I got a lot of energy, I could squash it, bury it, pump it down. It's like you could just go over it. It's like driving a caterpillar over it. It's like I did everything to not have to deal with it or face it. But when I did art, I actually got to turn around, touch the depressive force, and I realized that as I touched it, I was touching the very root of my own voice, the very root of my own expression. And so if I killed my depression, I was killing my expression. If I snuffed out my depression, I was snuffing out my personality, my ability to be in the world, my own voice. And so to exercise the gift of art was to find my own voice. And I had a long way to go, and I'm still working on that realm. I don't believe you ever get rid of depression. For me, I actually don't want to kill it. I don't want to get rid of it. I want to let it flow in and out as a natural part of life. And because it flows in and out, when it takes me down, I pay attention and I go, what is that depression telling me to do? And it's telling me to make a piece of art. It's telling me to at least get out, some steel wool and polish a pair of pliers, or scribble something, or write a short poem, or write a song. But it's saying you're burying your voice, you're not participating, you're hiding out. And every time I don't pay attention to the art, I start to shake inside, and I make all kinds of mistakes in every way. And I make mistakes in business. I make mistakes socially. It's like I'm not in my body, but if I have art going on, I just slip into my body, and I can really be there with people. And so I do art. I have to do it.
You have to do it.
I have to do it. I have no training in art.
Right.
I have to do it. And if I don't have some form of art going on, I'm a mess, and I know that. And I have 100 ways to do art now that I use, and you know, it's a way of life. Art is a way of life. It's my meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I've never quite said it like that. but that's what it is.
And
So I'll tell a story. As,
Yeah.
you know, in order to do the wobble wedge business, which is really fun, and that also was an art,
yeah,
because I wrote all the copy. I did all the back when you used to do literature, you know. It wasn't on the internet. Back when you had to build relationships with distributors, you know, it wasn't on the internet. All of that was an expression of myself, and it was that outward expression that made the business grow. But I still wanted to do my sculpture art, and 36 years into our business, I was like really itching to get back to welding, and I got the opportunity to. I was asked a question: would you build a chicken for me? And my immediate answer was, no, but I'll build you a rooster. And, excuse me. And so,
yeah. He's got a name, right?
well, this guy's name is Alfie, and I'll get it up here. But so I got the offer to build this rooster by a guy who wanted a symbol in front of his grocery store that said community, that said this is a place where you can come and you're protected and you're part of, you're in, you know, you're together. And so he wanted me to build this, and I had no idea how to build it. Oh, there you go. I had no idea how to build it. So I just started. I just had to start. And I don't know where you are on this picture here, but yeah, that's the frame. And, you know, building some rods out there, and I'm maybe halfway into this or wherever, and
Put them side by side. Yeah.
I'm working in my new shop. You know, I just built a shop for myself, and I'm in the privacy of this wonderful shop where I don't have to deal with anybody. I can be like totally raw in my own thinking and in my own way, understand what was going on. And that serenity was interrupted. And you know, these two vets, an Iraqi vet and two Iraqi vets, just knocked on the door and came in and said, "Can we help you build that rooster?" And in less than a heartbeat, I said, "Yeah, come on in." And they came on in, and I thought they'd be here for a day or two, or maybe 3 or something. But they wound up staying here for 9 months. And in that 9 months, the three of us, there was an older Iraqi vet and a younger Iraqi vet. The three of us became this well-oiled team where we didn't have to even speak in order to figure out where do we put this feather or what happens. And I just naturally gave them creative discretion, so they could choose where a feather went, what shape it was. They could choose how to pound it in, and we switched off from different tools. You know, one guy was handling the forge, and another guy was handling the hammer, and somebody else was handling the torch, and we just moved back and forth, you know, effortlessly between all the different jobs. And it was an amazing, amazing teamwork. And in the process of building that art, building the rooster, we started talking about their experience in war. And as a civilian who was lucky enough to not have to go to the Vietnam War, I got out by the lottery. To be honest, I was reasonably shut down from the whole idea of anything to do with veterans. I just wasn't paying attention to that. And these guys walk in and they're telling me about what they're holding, what they've been holding for years now. One of them had just come back from Iraq, and he had some significant losses over there and some significant experiences that I don't want to discuss without his presence. But it touched me in a deep, deep way. And the more I heard their stories, the more I invited them to make the decisions on the creative expression of the rooster. And the more I stood back. And by the time 9 months rolled around, the two of them had made some significant changes. They softened in some way. I won't say anything about healing, but they changed. They were more open in some way, and we came you know, to the place where it's time to roll this rooster out of the shop, like into the sunlight. It was done. And the three of us were in, you know, these tears. They had, you know, military tears, you know, they go down, you know. But I was just like that, you know. I had artistic tears. They were all over the place. And they were like, it was an emotional moment when we went, we're done. What are we gonna do, you know? And one of them asked me, well, what are we gonna do next? And it was at that moment that I realized, oh, I changed too. I had really opened up and something moved in me, and it was like, and my answer came from that place, that new place. It was like, I had no idea that my little gift of art, the thing that I gave myself, that gift to myself, could actually be useful to somebody with the trauma of war. It works for my trauma. Obviously, it would work for theirs. Well, not obvious. I didn't know.
But you found out.
But I found out. And in that moment, I said, we're going to do, I don't know what it is, but we're going to tell the story, your story, not just the story, but your story of coming home from war. And I didn't know what I was saying. I mean, it's like, I just made it up on the spot. It's like, we're just going to do this.
This is the answer you gave to the question, what are we going to do next?
Yeah, I said, we're going to tell your story. But to tell that story, you have to tell me something. You have to give me a background, and we have to discuss this and play with it and wonder about it and throw mud on the wall about it. And so we kept meeting, and we had these incredible talks, and we spent 2-3 hours one day with one of them just telling me the routine of being a soldier, you know, or like being in just the whole routine of it, you know, when they eat and how they eat, and the just the regimen of it,
Yeah.
and how he loved the regimen.
Yeah.
And you know, as an artist, I'm going, I don't want that kind of regimen. But to understand it and feel it and see the beauty of it, and see the beauty of the friendships that he held, you know, it's like the quality of the friendships that he held, and his commitment to it totally shifted my, I call it, I didn't know I had one of these, but I had a case of civilian mind. Civilian mind is kind of an affliction that comes in like a box of too many cookies, but it makes all kinds of assumptions about our warriors that are just way off base. We don't even, you know, I realized how much I didn't understand of who they are and what they were, and no wonder these guys were having a hard time being met. You know, it's like I'm a typical civilian, or I was. Now I don't know what I'm a hybrid.
An initiated, you're an initiated one.
I'm a hybrid civilian, something or other. I've heard so much and learned so much and continue to learn. So the Rooster started the Warrior Story Field. The Rooster was the foundation of the Warrior Story Field, and you know, one day I was packing wobble wedges with Brad, one of the veterans. I gave him a job packing wedges. He'd come in and help me pack wedges. The two of us, you know, he took men into battle, you know, and I've run bigger corporations, and we're back there packing wedges. But we're talking, and he says it's the demon that comes to my pillow with me. That's what I want to deal with, is the demon. And he said the other side is a total blank. You know, it's like, what am I going towards? I don't have anything to go towards, but I have something to run from, and it's a demon. And I'm listening to that story, and I go, well, the demon is like all negative. It's like, it's all bad. And I said, how about instead of a demon, how about a dragon, which has demon energy, but it also has protective energy. It also has a huge positive image, and a huge fierce image. And it's like, and I said, well, how about the dragon? Does that fit? And he goes, yeah. And then he goes, well, then the other side of that, the dragon is facing off with a phoenix. I mean, that's just in our mythology. And so it was right there in that conversation while we were packing wobble wedges. You know, it's like, bam, the dragon and the phoenix are our sculptures. And so my promise to these guys to do a story about them turned into 2 sculptures. Just like that. Not 1 sculpture, 2. And there's a really, really good reason for that. And it's developed over time.
When you say there's a really good reason for that, for there being 2 sculptures? Yes, because go ahead.
Well, as I listen to these 2 vets speaking, and as they introduced me to other vets, I kept hearing that I was one thing as a young man or a young woman. I was this one person, and then I went into the military training, and I became another person. So my younger person was, you know, searching for an identity. The military took that search away, and they handed me an identity. They pressed it into me. So I had that identity, and I had position and rank, and
Right.
I was part of a huge thing, much bigger than myself.
Right.
So that whole process is, okay, my identity is tied into the organism that it lives in,
Mm-hmm.
this massive structure, the military,
Mm-hmm.
and it's where I'm comfortable, where I understand all about life. It's where my people are, and it's for most, for many.
Yeah.
And I never thought of it that way, but this is a culture that they truly love.
Right.
And so the dragon, we couldn't have just a demon. The dragon was the right call by accident on my part. It's like the dragon allows for the pride and the beauty of the military culture, and just the whole thing about protecting our culture and just the power of protecting, but then
The fierceness.
the fierceness of it comes out as like the projection of power
Right.
by fire,
Right.
and that, and then the projection of expertise, it's like there's all this goodness about the dragon,
Yes.
and when the veteran comes home,
Right.
the shadow of that, the darker part of that comes out, and that's the demon. It's like, wow, I projected power all around the world, or I projected this or that, and I did some things that don't fit with my personality, some that don't fit with my belief system, or whatever it might be. And there's many things that could be, I've learned. So the dragon is when I look at it, I put my civilian take on it. It's like the dragon is my depression. This is how I view it. Other people can see it differently, but I see the dragon as my depression. But I also see the dragon as my expression. I have access to that dragon too. I can be fierce. I didn't know it, but I can be fierce, and I can be committed beyond the point of requirement, perhaps, and I can be demonic. I mean, I can be as ugly as I don't even want to talk about how ugly I can be, but I could, I just see all of it in myself, right? And then I look at my fight with being in the world, and it's like, I've got this dragon here, but what am I aiming for? What am I looking for? What part of this am I missing that I'm incomplete with, right? And so I spent my life trying to kill my dragon,
Right.
and I see our culture trying to kill the dragon for the veterans. Like, well, let's drug that depression out of them because we don't want to see it. It makes me uncomfortable as a civilian to see you be upset or depressed or whatever, because
Or angry.
or angry or enraged. I, as a civilian, I sent these folks to war. I don't want to feel any consequence from that. So I say thank you for your service with a stiff arm that says, don't tell me any more than that. And that's what I do. I'm accusing myself of being there. But I look across from the dragon, and I look over to the phoenix, and the phoenix takes all that distress.
So you conceived of this when you were talking to Brad, but then he said the other side is empty, that it doesn't have something to look at. And so exactly did you conceive of the phoenix?
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I just have to be Brad and I, his name is Brad Gallup, and I consider him as, part founder of this project. Brad Gallup. Anyway, he and I were in a collaborative space, and we're passing ideas back and forth, and we're like enlivened by this thing. So this whole thing started as a collaboration.
Yeah.
And so,
but from the conversation and interaction with him, the thing that the dragon was going to be facing is
Phoenix.
a phoenix bird.
Right. And the phoenix bird, just on a personal level, civilian level, but mostly just personal. This is the part of me that has to, remember I said I had to die to what I know.
Yeah.
Well, to die to what you have to know, you got to dig into, for me, I had to dig into my belief system. Everything I learned as a kid, everything I learned to believe as a kid, I had to question it and go, is this true or is it just story? Is it something I need to hold on to, or is it something that no longer serves? Or what part of all these relationships that aren't working for me can I shift or change? And what do I have to do to get there? Because I was circling the drain.
Yeah.
And the phoenix takes all that distress and trauma, and it melts it all down in fire, right? In my imagery, or in anybody's, however, it takes that and it burns it down to ash, and then it reforms it and springs back out, and it gives this glorious rebirthing of who you are. And that's a process of life. So had I succeeded in killing the dragon, I never would have met the phoenix. Or had I succeeded in holding the dragon down, just buried in a cave somewhere, I never would have met the phoenix and been able to engage in it. And so this is just my theory. This is the story field is my personal art, and it's deeply personal, and the messaging within the two sculptures is deeply personal, and it has to remain that way so that I'm being true to the art in terms of the expression of it. But as I give it away to the veterans, it has to be, if it's not mine to give, I have nothing to give. So I have a story built into here, and I pass off the shaping of this and the shaping of that and the structure of this. And it becomes their story, each of theirs individual and separate from mine. So the process of making this is as I said, collaborative, and it's difficult to know where things come from. So the truth is, all of our imagery and all of our messaging and all of our personalities are built into these sculptures, and there is no one owner, no one artist. This is a collaborative piece, and the collaboration is deep, and it stimulates amazing connections. That collaboration stimulates amazing fights and struggles, making this a real and beautiful relationship between civilians and veterans. Now, Brad's view of the Phoenix is similar to mine. It's like he started to understand for himself that there is this thing that he could reach for, but his training was not to bring this along.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his training is like when he gets out of the military, it's like, you know, tough it out. Just like I chose to tough it out, but he did it from a military mindset. I did it from a civilian mindset. You know, tough it out. You don't have to know this. You don't have to turn around and face it. You don't have to understand it. And the answer to that for me is no. You have to feel it. If you want to understand it, you have to feel it. You have to dig into your body, because the experience of trauma, my personal experience, lives in your body. It lives in your tissue and your muscles. It lives in your liver, you know, your heart.
Right.
It lives in your lungs, where your voice originates. You know, it's like it's in every part of your body, and I believe that to be true of a veteran. They go through a traumatic experience, or let's say as some say it's an austere experience. You know, that stores itself in your tissue.
Yeah.
And when you actually physically pound a piece of metal, or physically work a piece of clay, or physically draw a drawing, or you write down a poem, you know, it's like, and you're using your hands and your arms and your voice to speak that poem, or whatever, how, you know, if it becomes physical, and you experience it and you feel it, that changes. It doesn't heal it, because you don't get rid of your trauma. You can't erase it.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives you more choice. And it gives you the ability to express things that otherwise would never have been expressible.
Yeah.
That's that's my idea of this. And go ahead.
Is that by them coming in here and working with the metal itself, with the craftsmanship of welding, firing, heating up?
Fire, man, fire is good for everything. Fire. You know, it's like you take a, you know, we start out with an I-beam.
Right. Right.
And you know, we have a stack of I-beams out there that have a particular shape.
Right.
And it's not a pleasing shape, really. It's nothing really beautiful.
Right.
It's nice for a structure, but it doesn't carry an emotional thing. And so we take a raw piece of steel and we treat it to a massage with a torch. You know, and so we cut some piece of this I-beam out, and then we treat that to a little bit more heat, and we hammer and we pound and we twist and we turn, and all of a sudden we have the shape of a beautiful feather coming up, you know, or we take things that were shot out of the I-beam, like nowadays instead of drilling an I-beam for a bolt hole, you just punch it out with a hydraulic press, you know. So these little buttons that are about this size, or maybe something like this, you can see where it's been pushed out by a heavy pin, and the front of it has actually been bowed out by the pressure, right? And then it's just pushed right out of the I-beam. That's a 1/2 inch thick. That takes a lot of violence to make a little button like that. So I'm working with one of the vets here on the project, and he wants to make a heart. He made one in clay. It's absolutely beautiful, and I could tell that story, but excuse me. We're looking around the shop, well, what are we going to make this heart out of? Well, we have a whole bucket of these, you know, hundreds of them. And I say, Bob, each one of these was made in, you know, a violent hit by a hydraulic punch, you know. And he goes, yeah, I want to make the heart out of violence and bits of violence. And so I say, let's see how we can do it. I think we can pull this off. And so we take, I don't know, 100 of these, 150, maybe more, and we weld these together in the shape of a heart. And it becomes a smooth and delicious heart with a braised bronze color. I mean, you know, people are just gonna have to see the thing, but this beautiful heart emerged out of these bits of violence. And that's the heart that drives the dragon right now.
You're aiming at something here that's very hard to express and very hard to speak about. As a matter of fact, this thing here is meant to represent something, isn't it?
Yeah, that's actually one of the guys that's been here for the whole time I've been doing this, one of the vets, Denny. He brought that in and proudly plopped it in between these two sculptures. You know, we haven't talked about the space in between, but he proudly plopped this right in between the two sculptures. And he said, this is our time clock. This is how long it takes to heal something truly. So, you know, I just want you to know we're not in a hurry. The evolution of this piece is just how long it's going to take to do the work that we're doing. So let's relax. And one of the things that I guess I'll call it a precept, you know, maybe it's a law. You know, it's like, I believe this, and that is, when you get into art, when you start art, when you allow yourself to dive into that place where you're expressing your particular story, and that's what each of us do out here. That's what I call on them to do, and sometimes they call on me to do it because I get lost. But what I believe is there is no time in art. So if you're really doing art, you know, it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't have a deadline. It doesn't have a schedule.
When it went to the rock, it disrupted reality.
All right, now you're going and you're just gonna have to hold it.
Yeah.
Sorry to say, maybe this just ran out of charge. I don't know what happened.
Has that got a battery?
Yeah. Okay, so where was I?
You were talking about how art has no time.
Yeah, so art has no time, and I have had, this is, you know, I didn't know what I was getting into when I said, you know, yeah, we're going to tell you the story of your experience of coming home from war. I thought, well, you know, I could do another sculpture, maybe a year or two. We are now into the 7th year of doing this, and along the way, I had to say to myself, we are all dipping into the deep well of art, and if I disrupt that by pushing, I will destroy the art. And so it's like, my commitment is, as long as it takes, we're going to do this art. And you know, there's a lot of pressure out there. People always asking, when are you going to finish it? When are you going to put it up? Where is it going to go? And you know, for 7 years, or almost 7 years now, I've said, I don't know. To say I don't know in this culture is like not a comfortable thing. but it's a celebration out here because if we don't know, we are still in the art, and we're still in the expression, and the expression of this art, the fire that feeds it, the food that feeds it is conversation. And so we get into these conversations about all kinds of things, like this suicide conversation. You know, we're going deep into the issue of suicide, and we're going deep into is this a prey heart or a predator heart in the dragon? Or we've had weeks of conversation about the shape of the neck of the dragon.
Right.
You know, it's like, is the neck in retreat? You know, is it like, or is it ready to? I mean, is it like cocked and ready to snap? You know, and we've gone into deep conversations about just the shape of the talons. You know, are they really grabbing on the tree or are they lightly landing? You know, it's like, what is happening with these creatures? Because everybody has a different point. And there's one, he's like, the wound in the dragon, there's a wound in the side of the dragon. And some vet, one vet asked, you know, he wants the dragon to have a wound in the left side. And when we put the wound into the big dragon, it went into the right side because somebody else wanted it over there. But it's not lost on the team that there needs to be a wound in the left side. And that's starting to show up. But we didn't know how it was going to show up, and now we do. You know, it's like, so those conversations just wrap around and flow and come in and out. And sometimes we're laughing, and sometimes we're, you know, plotting the demise of the other. We can do this thing. No laughter in here, you know, it's the ouch. I think that I'm probably one of the luckiest people on the planet to be able to spend this kind of time with veterans, and for them to share their stories with me in the way they do, to challenge me in the way they do, to keep coming in the way they do, just blows my mind that they're still here, they still want to do this, that they're engaged, and when I falter, they pick me up. I'm not picking them up. What civilians are missing, I just want to say this out loud, what I think civilians are missing is that veterans carry a unique understanding of the world. I've called it wisdom, and all of the veterans out here kick me for saying that. But it's a unique understanding of the world, and we civilians are missing out by never asking for that knowledge. We are making a massive mistake not to ask for that knowledge and not to you know, to be afraid to even know it exists. I guess I can say that. And when we say thank you for your service so smartly and cleanly, we shut that conversation off. You know, it's like the question I love to ask the veterans out here is, one, I don't ever want to thank them for their service, but I do want to do this. I want to ask them, what do you want to do today? What do you want to be today? How can I serve you today? You know, that's a lot.
This is fucking profound, man.
So I want to tell probably there's 1,000 stories out here that I'll never be able to tell. But there's one that I have permission to tell. And I want to tell that one. And I'll tell it over and over again. I'll probably be telling it when I'm 100 and making all the nurses, listen. But I was working with Bob on, I was working on the Phoenix, and he was working on the Dragon, and there was just two of us there that day. I believe maybe Matthew was there that day too, but so Bob was working on.
Who's a veteran?
Who's a veteran? Yeah, two veterans and one, artistic-y, civilian. And I'm just laying in weld after weld after weld for structure. I'm not making shape. So I'm over there just doing the hard crap work of getting stuff together where it needs to be strong. And I'm watching Bob over there putting in the teeth and the lips of the dragon. And the lips of the dragon are our hope was to capture both the rage and the determination and the angst, and also the deep pain, and all in one thing. It's a tall order, and that all showed up in the lips, and he's shaping this lip up there out of steel, right? And he's getting it. He's getting the expression. And he finishes, and he's packing up and getting ready to go take care of his horse. And I'm looking across the way. I'm standing, 10, 12 feet up there, looking across at the dragon. I'm probably 10 feet from it. And I'm looking at this face that's showing up out of just all this blank steel. And I go, Bob, don't go yet. Come over here. Meet me on the top of this scaffold. And he came over and got up, he climbed up to the top, and he stood, we're like looking off the masthead of a boat. And we're looking over the head of the Phoenix. Across at the dragon. And we're looking at this fierce tongue and these teeth that are just sharpened up there, and the curvature of his lip. And so I said, Bob, just look over there and look at what you have created. And his neck, it was a hot day, but his neck just turned red, his body started shaking, and this red rash ran up his neck and up into his face. And my skin was crawling, just feeling the energy that was coming off his body. And we were both literally crying. These were real, this was crying. This was no fucking military cry. This was an outright just torrent of emotion that was flowing out, and he's looking over there, and we didn't say a word, and we didn't say a word, and it went on, and it went on, and he finally kind of calmed down, and between his emotional state and the tears, he gets the words out to me. He says, "That's my demon, and it's over there." And that was it. It's like, what civilian gets to see that? All civilians should see that. All civilians should feel that. Anybody dealing with trauma should feel that you can actually express yourself outside and step away and see. So this project is really, really easy.
Oh my God.
Effortless. I never have to think about it. I never wonder I always know exactly what to do. It's, you know, it's intense out here, and it's an awesome experience. And these sculptures are infused with the hearts and dreams, the pain, the essence, the wisdom of these amazing veterans.
And I want to take you to the conclusion, which is prompt you with, you've described this as a field of expression, I think.
That's right.
And that this space that's literally right here in between, that there's something to.
Well, the truth is this. We're physically building two sculptures.
Yeah.
But the real art
Mm-hmm.
lives in the space between. The real art is the tension that we're expressing between these two pieces of art. There's a massive tension between the dragon and the phoenix, and they're both life forces that are pulling and pushing on each other like a magnetic draw, right? And if you separate that, you tear apart the energy. Okay, and to step in the field between them is to step into, and this is my interpretation for my personal view of it, but to step in between them is to honor both sides of yourself and to invite both to speak. And when you invite both to speak, there is an opportunity to touch a piece of wisdom that can change the way you hold your life. And if a community can step in between these sculptures, or a team of veterans that fought together can step in between these sculptures and honor both sides of themselves, that's a powerful thing. And if we could understand that the power of the dragon comes from the expression of power from an organization. It gains its personality and its power from the organization it serves,
Yeah.
right? And that when you come out of that service and you come across this field and you go into the phoenix energy,
Mm-hmm.
if you will, the phoenix expression, let's call it that, rather than, then the source of power that you are required to touch is an internal source that's expressed from within, and you can never drop away the dragon. But if you bring it across and you express it from within your personal power, the dragon can serve you. If you stuff the dragon down and never access your personal power, your personal expression, then you're fighting the rest of your life. And I'm not saying that, either one is the right way. I'm saying one gives you more choice and one gives you less choice. And that's it. That's the story. Yeah. I don't know what else to say.
I don't think there's anything else to say. I want to say thank you.
I do okay?
This is
I'm
Robert Bellows. I don't have any words, except thank you for even, this is from, I'll speak from my experience, which is someone who's also a civilian, and, you know, it's wild how I ended up in this project, I think. But it's changed us all. It's changed me. And you've created the space for us to do this. So, thank you.
You're most welcome. And, it's you know, it's the opportunity to do this is a once in a lifetime or once in many lifetimes
Sure.
opportunity. I mean, it's like doing this is a massive gift to me, to be able to express my own self in this way, and to have other people come in and express their own selves in a way they've never touched is like unbelievably beautiful to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, and of course I never let go of the idea of, well, all the various mistakes and misturns and the struggles and all that stuff, that's all there. And my learning is like, without that, there would be nothing. Without the mess ups, you know, without putting in a wrong piece of steel in the wrong place at the wrong time, there would be nothing. And so the, you know, mistakes are this golden process that brings us to a better place. And damn, I just love doing it. That's all there is to it.
On that note,